You're tuning into Accelerate Generational Wealth, a monthly learning series produced by SVN Excel Commercial Real Estate. Hosted by Jenna and Brian Truman, this series brings together guest speakers who are experts in their field to provide cutting-edge industry information. Whether you're new to the business or a seasoned investor looking to diversify your portfolio, you'll find a wealth of knowledge at absolutely no cost to you. Without further ado, SVN Excel proudly presents Accelerate Generational Wealth.
Yeah, so hopefully
All right.
they're getting as much information as they can on the front end, which kind of helps that timeline process. You know, a lot of the things I talked about in the beginning, that financial statement, the bio, having the tax returns, your current financials. If you have all those things ready to go, like, there really shouldn't be too much outside of that. But with an actual lender, it really shouldn't. Once we have a full package, it's not with me more than 48 hours. I mean, I want some time, unless I'm just crazy overwhelmed. You know, I'll tell you, but usually 2 days, 2 to 3 days, I need time to kind of pre-underwrite that deal, maybe have a conversation, call the client, ask some extra questions. And then once it actually goes to underwriting, I would say it depends on the size of the deal. So I think smaller deals tend to get underwritten a little bit quicker. So if it's a deal that's under $1 million, typically you can get those through an underwriting process within about 3 days, I'd say. But if it's over $1 million, you know, it can take anywhere from 5 to 10 business days. But again, that really depends on the bank. So
what typically would be considered to be the underwriting process?
for the timeline,
No, when you say a bank is underwriting, what does that mean?
so they're taking all the information that we've gathered and they're doing the actual spreads. They're actually approving it. They're looking at the property. They're doing their due diligence to kind of see, is this a good property? Is this an area we want to be in? You know, we've even had situations where, you know, very high net worth individuals, or even not, depends on. I had a deal come back one time and they questioned who my client was using as their attorney, because that attorney was listed on their PFS and that attorney had some negative press, and that they were looking at the character of my client based on who they chose as their attorney. So things like that come up in underwriting that you wouldn't even think of. So, but those are things that go on in underwriting. So they're really digging into all the details.
Yeah. So what is the craziest thing you've seen on a deal that's happened? That's what's the most surprising?
From an underwriting perspective?
Yeah. So if you thought, hey, you know, I think this deals are pretty slam dunk, and then something that's come out of underwriting and you're like, oh my gosh.
Well, that was one of them,
Yeah,
the attorney.
yeah, so that's what
because
made me
I
think of
thought,
that.
because this
So,
was
yeah.
a client I had worked with for a number of years. I mean, I had done multiple deals with them, and then this came up, and I was like, we're not going to approve them because they have this attorney on their, like, I was shocked. So
Right.
I had to dig into that. So that was one of them. I had another deal where I had a very wealthy couple. They literally had $80 million. And they wanted to finance a commercial property. The property itself was not performing. And we just flat out said, we do not think this is a good investment.
Yeah.
And the borrower said, we have all this money. How can you possibly tell us no, pretty much?
Yeah.
I mean, they could have paid cash for it, but they didn't want to. They didn't want to spend their cash. And we told them no. We were going to finance like 40%, you know, of the contract. So,
Yeah.
Actually, you kind of answered my question, but here recently, I found that a lot of local churches have partnered with Dave Ramsey. And so, me personally, I've had 3 clients that is in this. I pay cash for everything, and all of them have between $2 and $5 million. But they have no credit. And I've tried to get them loans. And matter of fact, kind of what you said, one of my clients, he had $2 million in the bank, and they wouldn't lend him $65,000 on a piece of commercial property.
Oh, it was commercial.
Well, it was residential, but he was going to use it as
Was
it
he
was going to be rental property
was
for
he
him.
financing it under a consumer
No.
personal channel, or was he going through a commercial channel?
No, he was financing it, trying to finance it through his bank under his name
Right. So they, I'm gonna guess
because he didn't have any credit.
So again, banks are different, but I do find that if they are going under a consumer channel, like if you're going through a traditional type mortgage group, or if you're financing it under your personal name, those rules and guidelines tend to be a little bit different. So they are really heavily focused on, do you have established credit and all those things. On the commercial side, I'm not going to say you don't have to have credit, but we've got a lot more room there to be creative with how we come up with a way to say yes. So it may not be the way that they envision it in their mind. I actually had a situation where an individual, they had credit, but the credit that they had was literally like 20 years old. So they had not financed anything in a very, very long time. They actually had sold a business and did not have regular income coming in. But we found a way to say yes because they had money. They were very liquid. So in that particular scenario, we literally made them put 2 years of payments basically in a holding account at the bank so that we were until that property got performing. So, I think there's ways to find a yes. It's just a little bit harder.
But a lot of parents, they get attitudes about that.
About the credit piece?
They get attitudes when they say, I'm not wanting to really have personal debt.
Yeah.
And now I've got all of this money, but you're not willing to lend me
Yeah.
when I know I've got this sitting over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Garrett, go ahead. I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead.
No, they're,
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Garrett, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Terms, every bank, it seems like, has different timelines and terms, and there are lockup periods and amortization periods, things like that. What are you seeing for, are they, for example, if you're financing something, is it 20-year amortization but a 5-year, balloon period, or are you seeing like a change with how the market has been with like timelines? Is it 3 years, 7 year type thing?
Well, ideally in the commercial world, we really typically like to see a 520. So we don't want to lock that rate any more than 5 years and amortize it out more than 20. Will we do something different? Yes. I do a lot of 25-year amortization. Capstar we're not doing 30. I've never done a 30-year amortization on a deal since I've been there. Will we lock a rate in for 7 years? Yeah, but in this market environment, you're not going to like it. So, we'll look at those things. We have to be able to really explain why do we want to lock it in for 7 or 10 years. I had somebody that was adamant they wanted to lock in the rate for 10 years, and we wouldn't do it. I ended up sending that individual to a different bank, and I think they did it, but we weren't going to do it. So that goes back to finding somebody that's going to tell you no, and maybe find somebody to get it done for you.
So it's the other. Oh, go ahead, Drew.
What
Sorry.
kind of prepayment penalties do you guys have on your products?
So for us, we typically do a 3-2-1. So 3% first year, 2%, and then 1 in the third year. I've got a little bit of flexibility with that. Like for example, I have a borrower now who he got some excess cash and he's wanting to pay off a property that I financed for him last year. But he's going to buy another property and he's financing that with us. So in that case, I'm waiving his. It's not like he's cheating on me with another bank, right? Like he's not taking his deal somewhere else. So I'm waiving that for him, and we're going to do his next deal. So some banks have some flexibility on that, but ours typically is a 3-2-1.
I know with us as commercial realtors, we usually talking about cheating, right? And it's we usually have several commercial lenders, because as we get into October, November, and I approach Shell, and it's like
Our bucket's full.
that bucket is full, right? So it's kind of like they have different amount of money in each one of these buckets, whether for multifamily, for this, for that. Towards the end of the year, they kind of get full, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of what what occurs? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is driven not by the end of the year, but just what the market environment's doing, period. So I think a lot of banks are getting full on the whole single family investment property. You can probably attest to that too. So, for us, if you come to me with a 10-unit property, I'm much more likely to do that than I am a duplex.
Right.
Because just everybody and their brother has bought a piece of investment property, I think, over the past few years. So all banks are just full on that stuff.
Yeah.
And then from a risk perspective, you mentioned storage units earlier. At U.S. Bank, we wouldn't touch those with a 10-foot pole. I can do them at Capstar, but we already have a few on our books.
Yeah.
So even though it may not have been this year, we've got some in our bucket already. We don't want a ton of those. So we do analyze those things. You just got to bring it to me and see where we're at.
We'll go one last question. Oh, two last
Two last
questions, and
questions.
then we got to turn time over.
So, when it comes to underwriting and different types of partnerships and / syndications, can you talk to us about how that affects how you look at the property, and if you have multiple buyers and people are limited partnerships or general partnerships, do you treat them differently in how you do the underwriting, or is it okay?
No, it's not treated any differently. It really is truly about telling the story of the individuals, of the business, of the property. How it's actually organized doesn't really matter to us.
So if it's a syndication, you don't care as long as if the numbers work.
Yeah, exactly.
Lisa.
You mentioned self-storage, so my question is specifically around specialty commercial properties, mobile home parks. Are you guys comfortable with that?
We do them. We do them, but that's a situation where we're going to ask for a little bit more money down. We're not going to go 80% on a mobile home park. So that's usually something where we're going to look at maybe a 70% type situation.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a little bit riskier.
Well, thank you, and I really appreciate Shell doing this because this is out of her comfort
A
zone.
little bit.
So we had to beg and plead, and and all that stuff, and
I love you guys.
buy cookies and all that
Yeah.
stuff for her, whatever,
good.
to get her come. So I really appreciate
welcome.
you doing this because, like you say, I know it's way out of your
all
comfort
good.
zone. So she was here.
You
like,
made it easy. so
She was
good.
here like 3:00, prepping for this. It wasn't quite that early. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding,
Just
but
like
they're
45
just
minutes.
kidding. So, so here's our thank you.
Okay,
This is
nice.
warm
Because
tip
I need more
treats.
cookies.
Cookies.
Yeah.
So.